So, okay, just think again, think. Remember, prayers are just thoughts, so don't get all holy because it's called a prayer, you know. Try and make it really natural. You're thinking all the time. So we think. Okay, I'm sitting here, want to listen to Buddha's teachings, see if there's some methods there that I can take and put into my life to use to develop my qualities so I can be a benefit to others. All the way to enlightenment. Why not? Think like this. We can just sing the little prayer there at the top, the second two lines of which express this motivation. The first two lines are just expressing our relying upon the Buddha, so anybody who feels like they're already a Buddhist, then you just remind yourself of that reliance. Sangye chodam soke chognam la jancho badu dagni kyab suchi dagi chunyen gipe sonam ki drola penchir sangye dropa shog Sangye chodam soke chognam la jancho badu dagni kyab suchi dagi chunyen gipe sonam ki drola penchir sangye dropa shog Sangye chajan soke chognam la jancho badu dagni kyab suchi dagi chunyen gipe sonam ki drola penchir sangye dropa sho. So let's talk about how we purify karma. A little bit just about, yeah. And even a bit more how we create, you know, just the kind of the process of creating karma, of doing actions, what propels us to do things, you know. We can talk more about this tomorrow. But if you look into your mind, if you look into how we think we are, you know, first of all, we have this view very strongly that someone made us. So that's reinforced every day. We take that as an assumption. It's the assumption right there. And so all our views are based on top of that, aren't they? That's just this deep assumption. I was made by someone else. You know, what's here is fixed. It's concrete. This is how I was made. So, you know, it's just, we reinforce that. And really that kind of reinforcing, sort of intuitively, is what Buddha means by ego grasping. It's sort of like whatever the thing is, you take it as a given. That's how it is. Oh, well, that's how it is. Wheels are square. If you see a square wheel one day, you forevermore think that's how wheels are. Or this is how things are. If the house is all dirty and yucky, you just think every day, oh, I live in a dirty house. Oh, God, I live in a dirty house. It never occurs to you could change it. That's seeing things as concrete, and it's a very limiting, fearful state of mind, isn't it? Because you don't think you can do anything. Oh, this is how it is, how depressing. So that's how we think about ourselves. This is me, you know, this anger, this jealousy, this depression, this hopelessness. We're very narrow-minded about ourselves. That's all the way that the delusions work. They're narrow-minded, and they're very concrete. And so, of course, then you've got on top of that this attachment. And attachment, its nature is dissatisfaction. Its nature is always thinking something's wrong. It's this aching sense that something's missing. It's kind of beyond concept sometimes. It's just this aching sense of always being dissatisfied, always something wrong, always something missing. And of course, what's the thing that's most wrong is me. You're dissatisfied with yourself, and then you dump it on everybody else. Dissatisfaction. So then you're always seeing yourself through that filter. It's never good enough. You're never fat enough. You're never thin enough. You're never beautiful enough. You're never intelligent enough. So there's all this stress and anxiety that comes from this. We can see. This is just natural. We all have this deep, deep. So we then reinforce all of that and assume all of that is natural. So we keep building it up every day. We keep adding more dirt to it every day. My room, my house is such a dirty room. I live in a dirty room, you know. And you keep adding more dirt to it. You keep defining it this way. You keep seeing it this way. You keep remembering it this way. So it builds up and builds up to become Mount Everest. This is how the mind works. This is how delusions work. There's no hope. There's no space for change. There's no thought to change. It's just the anxiety increases, the depression increases, the aversion increases, the criticism increases. We build it up. We build it up. This is the process of creating karma, you know, in a negative sense. So it's exactly what you do when it comes to the positive ones. So, of course, because the status quo is you've got a big, fat, dirty house and you just assume houses are like this and it's just how it is and you've seen it since you're born and you reinforce it every day and then it never occurs to you you can change it, then when it does occur, when someone points it out, it's a bit scary because it argues with the status quo, doesn't it? You keep running back like a magnet to the dirty house because that's what you're used to. It's comfortable, it's safe. So that this is what happens with our minds. And so, of course, if you're always seeing your house as dirty, you can't even visualize clean. You don't even know how to do it. Then you try it, it's a lot of effort, so you go back to the status quo again. This is how we are with our minds. We see what's there, and then delusions in their nature always see the negative. They don't see, in their nature, they're negative. Delusions in their nature are negative. They see the negative, they highlight the negative, they reinforce the negative. So when we're doing it with ourselves every day, well, of course, how do you think you see the outside world? It looks like a miserable place, doesn't it? You're seeing ugly people everywhere. All the cause of the suffering, always criticizing people, always finding fault, always distressed, always dissatisfied, always irritated, always anxious, then always blaming everybody else for it. I didn't ask to get born. It's not my fault. Look at this ugly world. What do you think? Then we have mental breakdown, then we go get pills. I mean, it's a bit distressing. And what's distressing is our view, that this is our viewpoint. We can change our viewpoint. We can change the way we see things. We can change the way we see things. This is practice. And the reality is, at the deepest level, Buddha's actually saying, there is nothing out there from its own side that has this or that nature. Everything is viewpoint. I has no inherent nature. There's nothing there that you can find that is the real you, which is in the way we think it is, in a neurotic sense. So that's kind of scary, you know. Everything is viewpoint. Everything is viewpoint. But things exist within that. But the instinctive grasping at things as self-existent is always searching for that self-existent thing, that we're looking for that all the time. But the Buddha says you won't find it. You won't find the I. You won't find the good or bad this or that. But they do exist. But how they exist is within the fact of being conventional realities, in the fact of being a thing that you see. This is how things exist. It's quite subtle. It's hard to hear it initially. So the job is to change the way we see things. Buddha says things don't exist in the way we see them. It's like we're colourblind. You think it's blue, in fact it's red. So not only do we see something wrongly, we believe that's how it is, and that's the killer. That's the killer. That's what keeps us stuck in samsara. We have a wrong view of something, we think it's red, and then we think it's true. So you get conceived, you come fully programmed, like I said. You're fully programmed with a bunch of propensities that were the ones that ripened at the time of your death, along with the karma that ripened to give you this human life. And all the things of your life, all the propensities and all the different relationships and the experiences and the things, all the propensities for all of this ripen. And then we just start to act it out, you know. Now we can call that deterministic, and it is deterministic, but so is gardening. It's deterministic. You sow a seed and you just wait for the fruit, and you're not surprised when a peach seed brings a peach tree. It's deterministic. You're absolutely right. That seed brings that fruit. It's very simple. It's the law of cause and effect. So if you want to call that deterministic, then yes, karma is deterministic. But so is the law of cause and effect. So is botany. So is carpentry. So are numbers. You put one together with another one, you're going to get two. That's deterministic. It's a law. It's very simple. But we have this view. We think somehow everything pops up out of nothing. We think tomorrow is a brand new day. We really believe that. So if someone's clairvoyant and they say that this will happen tomorrow, you think it's all deterministic. Well, you can be a gardener and I can know nothing about botany, and you can point out to me what looks to me like a barren ground, and you can give me a complete vision of what it'll look like in 50 years. And I'll go, oh wow, you're clairvoyant. You'll say, no, Robina, I just know the law of botany. No big deal. Everything's like this. You do this and you get that result. But we think we're different. Created by somebody else, everything's a brand new day, you never know what's going to happen, things are always random, can't plan, you know, you are kind of like this, you know. It's not. It's all based on cause and effect. So you come programmed with these tendencies. So the first job you have to do is know your mind, know your tendencies, and have a basis for judging of whether they're valid or not. Just like you learn any laws, you learn the law of botany, you learn the law of numbers, then you can work with things. So you learn the law of morality, the laws of morality. What is positive, what is negative? Why is it positive? Why is it negative? And then you see your own mind. You learn to meditate. You learn to do single concentration meditation, which gives you the skill to see yourself well, to identify what's there. And then you can learn to change it. But all this, too, is the point is it's empowering. It's because it's based upon this view that you can be perfect. You can become Buddha. That's your potential. That's where you're heading. So right now the status quo is the house is crummy. But every day you have a vision in your mind of how the house will look when it's beautiful. It gives you courage, doesn't it? You see the vision. You identify with the vision rather than the status quo. So that's what we have to do with ourselves. It's like if you're learning sport, learning to be a tennis player. One of the techniques they use in psychology in sports now, you visualise what you'll be like when you're good at it. And it's one of the actual tools to help you become good at it. That's not living in a fantasy world. It's one of the weapons. It's one of the tools you use to become that. Same with ourselves. So there is the reality of what we are now. You can't walk. You can't play piano. But once you know you've got the potential, then you're given the tools and then you identify with the result. You keep looking at other bike riders. You keep looking at other pianists. And it gives you courage to know that, wow, I can become that. So you work towards it. You change the status quo. It is the reality, but it's not concrete and stuck. And that's how ego thinks. So we stay stuck. We go around in circles in our own heads, you know. So already we're born blinkered. We're born blinkered, you know, with all the delusions that are there. So if you've got the tendency to be very angry, let's say, from past practice, then already it's there. Your mother doesn't have to teach you. My mother did not have to teach me. Well, come on, Bobsy. She called me Bobsy. Come on, darling. Fist, make it stronger. Shout louder. Come on, sweetheart, shout louder. She did not need to teach me. I knew how. I was really good at it. You know, I came programmed. So if you program with that, then even as a tiny baby, the second you meet what you don't want, you get angry. I mean, we just think, oh, it's just babies. But I'm sorry, look at a baby screaming and kicking its legs. If that's not anger, it's certainly not happiness. I mean, call it what it is. It's called anger. We don't think babies have emotions. We do, but we sort of don't give them those names because we think, you know, anger is something that naughty people do. How can babies be naughty? Well, Hitler was a baby once. The tendencies were in its mind before he grew into big Hitler, you know. So then you follow that anger immediately. It continues to reinforce the ugly, dirty house, doesn't it? This is how everything is, and you're always meeting people who don't do what you want, and you're always fighting with people. So that's how the world looks to you. So it keeps reinforcing that. You keep believing this is how the world is. And all your experiences reinforce that every day, because you're always fighting with people every day. If you have a tendency to kill, you get born with that tendency. It's there. And when you see an ant, you don't even know it. You're a little fat, little-fisted little baby who's clumsy and can't crawl yet. But you see an ant and before you know it, you're down there with your finger squashing it. The impulse is so strong. Now, what is so distressing about these delusions is this. The bottom line really every day, as I said, is attachment. Attachment is this deep dissatisfaction that's craving to find something that will trigger pleasure in me, which seems to be the thing that stops the dissatisfaction, you know, for the moment. So let's say you have a tendency to kill. The thing that you go towards that seems to be what we would call instinct, which is just the programming, the karmic programming. The thing you run to do, obviously, is the thing that you've got the habit to do. Now, if we look at our own mind, this is what happens. You have a habit to get angry, you run to getting angry. And then while you're doing it, it's sort of like it feels good. You run towards it, you know, and it sort of feels good. A person who's attracted to killing fish, it gives them pleasure. They love the thought of the water. They run. Another person who has no karma with killing fish and no karma with water, the thought of sitting on a boat in the middle of the sea all day is profoundly boring, right? Certainly is to me. I'm not excited by the thought of all the sea and the this and the that. I like the sea, but to sit there all day? I mean, but a fisherman is in heaven with this. So that's coming from the habit of killing. So there's always a story I tell about a friend of mine whose son was a fisherman. And she was at Courtin, and she was telling me about, she was crying because she'd heard the teachings about karma, you know. She just heard, hearing the teachings from Lama Zopa. And she was very sad because 5 years before that, one of her beautiful boys had died. He was 29, and he'd been a fisherman all his life. She said, he's from up north, near Sacramento, near the sea, near the beach there, on the sea, up in the Pacific, you know, Highway 1. And he was a lovely boy, very good tendencies. He got a human life, got the karma to have a good mother, a good environment, much good karma, you know, good qualities from the past. But one of his tendencies, and it's very common in this earth, was to want to kill fish. So she said from the time she could remember, he ran like a magnet to the river, was attracted to it. He was attracted to killing the fish in the river. Lots of people like the river but don't think of killing the fish. She didn't teach him this. She didn't like killing. He ran like a magnet to the fishing. He even called himself Salmon, Sal. So, you know, when you're attracted to something like that, we all know, we make big stories about it, don't we? We build up something very wonderful about it, like if it's a boyfriend or if it's art we like to do or it's fishing. Whatever it is you're attracted to doing, that's your attachment object. So it becomes this big thing for you, doesn't it? You think about it when it's not there, you want to do it, you go towards it, you embellish it, you exaggerate it, you write about it, you understand, it becomes a big thing for you. That's how attachment works. So this is the point here. The thing you run like a magnet to do is the thing you have the habit to do. And the thing you have the habit to do that you run towards is what gives you pleasure. So for a fisherman, killing gives him pleasure. For a person who's attracted to food, eating triggers the pleasure. For a person who's attached to sex, having contact with bodies and having sex gives them pleasure. So we run to that like a magnet. So we can see we have attachment to bad habits and good habits. Some people have, you know, are very kind. And so their attachment can start to be attachment to the sense of themselves as being a good person, to being a kind person. They build up this exaggerated story of there being a nice person, a kind person. And indeed they get a lot of pleasure by helping others, but their attachment is mixed with it as well. It's good to help others, but they're attached to this. They're attached to their view of themselves as good, and they're attached to the outcome. So that's how attachment would work with something good. It's better to not harm someone. It's great that you help them, but attachment comes in as well. Well, then a person who's attached to fishing, they've got the habit to fish, which is harmful, and they're attached to that. You've got the habit to be angry, you're attached to that. You run to that. And this is the tragedy. So the logic we use in our world is, if it feels good, it must be good. Now, when it comes to helping people, that works. What a relief. But when it comes to fishing, it doesn't work. But we don't think that, therefore that's why we don't think fishing is bad on this earth. One of the reasons is because we don't think animals have a mind. We don't think they suffer. And then because we have this strong propensity to kill, so one of the ways it manifests is to kill fish. So we don't see it as bad. We don't see the fish as suffering. Now, you know, if fish squealed like pigs, I bet people wouldn't go fishing. So because they die quietly, it reinforces our view that it's a nice thing to do with nature. In the peace and quiet, you know, the sun shining, the river rippling, and the fish leaping out with their little hook. But we can't hear them shout, so we don't notice suffering. I mean, talk about stupid. We think we're intelligent. So we're blind. We can't see it. I remember there's an Australian, Robert Hughes, who's the art critic for the Times, has been for many years. And he's written a lot of books. And he's a total fisherman since he was born. He speaks about it almost in kind of mystical terms. So it means he's got a very powerful connection with killing. His first experience of catching trout. So because he's intelligent and creative, it's become this art for him. He talks about it in these very blissful, mystical terms. Because that's how strong attachment is. The feeling that it triggers is very pleasing. Look how intense the experience of contact with the human body is. Sexual attachment, as we call it, is simply very strong attachment. It means you've got very strong attachment, so strong that contact with the object triggers extraordinarily blissful feelings. Now we reify that and call it sexual this and that, and God gives it to us and all this, but it's just very strong attachment. The fact is, Mr. BTK, you know, that guy from Kansas City, the torturer guy, you know. He talked about his experiences of torturing and killing people in exactly the same way he got what we would call sexual pleasure. That's why we think he's perverted, because we don't understand how all that fits. All that means is, from past karma, he had unbelievably strong imprint to kill. So much so, since the time he could remember, he ran like a magnet, not just to killing, but torturing. And the way he did it, in a very elaborate way, was how he got all his sexual pleasure, all his orgasms, all his good feelings. It sounds revolting to us, but that's how attachment works. So this guy, Robert Hughes, he's almost got this mystical experience about fishing, because that means he's very strongly attached to it, you know. And so one person was interviewing him and talked about how she went to dinner with him, and he did this ceremonious way of killing the crabs. And sort of it's like he's got this flair and very artistic, but it's actually monstrous, you know. He's got this long, pointy thing. There's these crabs and a chopper, I think, I forget. And the way he dramatically chopped the crabs into four, you know. First stabbed them through the heart with this pointy thing, and then chopped them very powerfully into four. So for him, because he's attached to killing, and he's attached to this whole scenario, and attached to the fish and the drama and the story which you embellish and build up, then of course, what's happening? He can't see the suffering of that sentient being at all. This is how scary delusions are. And again, we think we're intelligent, we think we're in touch with reality, but there's something as obvious as that. So BTK, in his mind, he probably knew this woman was suffering as he was torturing and raping and killing her, excuse me. But his own pleasure, his own feelings were so powerful. This is how suffering karma is. His own experience of good feelings was so huge that completely dominated the entire experience and completely blinded him from seeing the suffering of that person. In fact, their suffering increased his pleasure. This is how karma works, and this is how tragic it is. And this is how we find it so hard to change. We mightn't be like BTK. We mightn't chop crabs into quarters. We mightn't stab them through the heart. But we lie, we, you know, harm people, we badmouth, we fight with people. And because it's our habit, and because we run to it like a magnet, and because we're mainly overwhelmed by our own feelings, this is what self-centeredness is, we're just caught up in the self, it blinds us from seeing what's actually happening with that other person. We can see it. So it's so hard to change, because we all want the good feelings desperately. And this is why the logic of the samsaric world is, if it feels good, it must be good. So that's why we keep doing it. So of course, as long as no one stops you, and as long as the world supports it, like salmon fishing is fine, you know, it's considered to be like an art. Even chopping crabs ruthlessly into 4 pieces, right there. Even boiling a lobster alive in hot water. These are considered cool. Now, if it was your poodle that you chopped into 4. If it was the poodle you boiled in hot water, that's a different story. But even that shows how stupid we are. That shows how unbelievably attached we are. We're not being kind to the poodle, we're just attached to it. Poodles and rats feel the same. Poodles and lobsters feel the same. They don't want to suffer. Look at their body language. It's very simple. But because we have all this scientific findings about brains and things, you know, which we use as our basis for whether or not somebody feels something, we don't take notice of the body language. You know, the ant doesn't like to suffer either. You look at a little tiny harmed ant, and you get a magnifying glass and you look at it. The body language is the body language of suffering. I'm sorry, you know, just have a look. Fish, why do they flap? Why are they kind of moving like this, you know? Not moving going, oh wow, this is great. If you take the hook out of the fish, where's it going to go? It won't just lie in the boat and say thank you very much. It'll leap into the water. It's telling you it prefers the water. It's sort of obvious, you know. Because we're overwhelmed by our own habits, and because the habits we have and the things we run to like a magnet are the things that give us a good feeling, and because we want the good feelings, then we can't see the suffering we cause. This is the suffering. This is the tragedy. So there's that intelligent, lovely human being born as a fisherman, born as a human being in this place, but had the tendency to fish. Because the world accepts fishing, you know. He didn't have to be like BTK and do it in secret. He did it openly, in public, and he was praised. He was a successful fisherman because lots of fish came to his nets and his hooks, Now that's an interesting point too. We never consider this. So if we start to dislike killing, we're going to start getting mad at the fisherman and blame him for the suffering of the fish. Well, that's not appropriate because, every single one of those fish had a karmic connection with him and ran to his hook. I went fishing once to impress a boyfriend. He was pulling them in. Not one fish came to me. I was trying to impress him. I didn't want to kill. I was just trying to impress him, Not one fish came. I didn't have the karma to kill, meaning there were no sentient beings, at least at that time, who had the karma to be killed by me. Because every one of those fish that Sal killed had the karma to be killed by Sal because they'd killed him. So they all ran like a magnet to his nets, to his hooks. The people on September 11, they weren't innocent victims. No such concept. It's a funny idea. Every single one of them had a karmic connection with those pilots, with those harmers. Who knows how many lives ago? And then they were leading their daily life, being nice Mrs. Smith and nice Joe, friendly, good people, or bad people. Bad people die, good people die. Just because you die in a big accident doesn't mean you're going to go to heaven. We prefer to think that. They're all angels and holy, But negative people were dying there as well, as good people. So they all had the collective karma from who knows when to have that experience with those particular people, and they ran like lemmings to the building that day, Sitting up on the 100th floor thinking it's a lovely day in this beautiful September sky, not seeing the future, having no fear, of course, and then suddenly, boom, karma ripens. So you could say, from the point of view of the people, the point of view of the fish, the main cause of their death was not the fishermen, was not the pilots. Very simple. The main cause was their own past actions. And you can see, it's kind of interesting, for the people on September 11, so intense was the karma that ripened at that time. So powerful, the negative karma that ripened, that like those people who were exploded into flames, their bodies, there was nothing left. It was the biggest shock, wasn't it? They got all that blood. The Red Cross had all the blood ready. No bodies. Couldn't even find remains, The intensity of the violence of that accident, which was so freakish and that no one predicted it, including those pilots. They weren't such good pilots, It was the karma of the negative actions from the past that was so powerful that is the main cause of why those buildings crumbled into dust and all the bodies disappeared. That's the intensity of the karma. Like for the person who burst into flames, we talked before. The intensity of their past karma at that moment ripened. This is how karma works, they say. It's not judgment, it's not reward, it's just this, it's how things happen, Buddha said. It's a natural law. Put about this amount of gas in the tank, you get that amount of mileage. Put this amount of oil in the fire, you get that amount of flames. Everything's a matter of level of energy, how much intensity. The cause, that intense is the result, So with some people, September 11, they left the building 5 minutes before. Some people found the staircase, went down, didn't even get a scratch. Because the karma they collected with those people wasn't as intense, so the result didn't come. The fully ripened result didn't come. So you could say that this word karma refers to the simple law of cause and effect. You do this and you get that. But it's the power. It's like what propels the mind, propels us to our next. It's like propelling us like a motor every minute. The power of karma, the power of attachment, the power of anger, your power of your jealousy, your kindness, your goodness. Depending on which one you've practiced most, that's the one that runs the show, So what we're trying to do is not accept the status quo. Right now, being a non-bike rider, that's the status quo, and that runs the show. My non-bike riding is what runs the show. But when I know I can change it, so I completely change the habit to become a bike rider. Well, that's what we can do. There's nothing you can't change about yourself. There's no karma that can't be purified. There's no habit you can't change. There's nothing concrete about our mind. There's nothing permanent. There's nothing unchangeable. And that's the blissful point. Everything can change. So then in order to know what your potential is, you know, like with a bike rider, you might have heard about bikes. You've got to look at bikes, you've got to look at other people riding bikes, you've got to see how it works, get the methods, and then you aim for that. You've got to see what music is like, you've got to meet musicians, you've got to hear the piano playing, then you aim for that. Well, you've got to know what Buddha means, in this case Buddha, by enlightenment, by Buddhahood, by qualities, good qualities, bad ones. You've got to know what he means by it. Don't just cross your fingers and hope for the best. And then you find the methods and you aim for it. You practice. That's it. Practice. But that's the scary part, because we're now brainwashed with our habits, and because we see things through those filters, and then that reinforces the current picture, then it's hard to break out of that mold, you know. It's very painful. Which is why we have to think about it a lot. We look at ourselves carefully, you know, because until we're, you know, most of the time we're blind to what's even going on inside us. Often we can see that with other people. You can see their faults really easily, but they're so caught up in it, they can't see it. We can see this. When you're so close to it like this, you can't see. That's why you've got to get some space. That's why in concentration meditation, where you sit and try to focus your mind, you're trying to get yourself away. You're trying to back away a bit, get a bit of space, get a better perspective so you can see what's going on, you know. So delusions make certain things look huge and cause us to be totally blind to other things. So this purification practice, again, like all of this stuff, it's psychological. It's your mind. If I'm a Christian, obviously, God made me, so then purification is getting God to forgive me. It's absolutely essential, isn't it? That's what purification is in Christianity. God has to forgive you. And again, look at our lives. That's how we think of it. Until someone forgives us, we don't think we've changed. Until someone forgives us and tells us they love us again, we will always think we're a bad person. This is why we have so much guilt and shame and depression. You know, if the person who you've harmed is dead and you can never be forgiven, you think that's it forevermore, you're a bad person. But purification in Buddha's terms has got nothing to do with being forgiven. Being forgiven is nice, but it's not what purifies you. It's your mind changing that purifies you. Your mind. As Lama Yeshe says, you know, it's your mind that created the suffering. No, that created negativity. So you purify it with your mind, creating positivity. It's changing it, you know. So there's this practice of the four, as they call it, the four powers, or the four opponent powers. The four, sort of like antidotes, you know. And a simple way to remember them is in terms of there being the four R's: regret, reliance, the remedy, and resolve. You can do these in a different order, and when you read various practices, they're taught often in a different order, but I find this order most tasty, most helpful, most practical. So, this first one, regret. Like all of these things, it's really specific. You've got to think about it precisely, not just vague, you know, which is how we are with emotional stuff, spiritual stuff. So let's think about this regret. It's very interesting. The Dalai Lama one time was asked, what's the difference between this regret that the Buddhists talk about and guilt, you know? And he was very sweet in how he answered. He said, guilt is looking into the past and saying, I did that, and I did this, and I did that, and I'm a bad person. It's sort of like reinforcing the ugly house. Every day you look at it, oh, my house is so ugly and dirty, and you reinforce it because you think that's the real thing. So you keep building it up. It becomes a Mount Everest. This is what we all do, isn't it? Which is why, of course, we cannot bear to look sometimes at the bad things. It just keeps making you feel worse, so we live in denial. Or, of course, we blame other people. There are three modes: guilt, blame, denial. Have a look, you know. So, okay, then what is regret? Well, regret, as His Holiness said, is looking into the past and saying, yes, I did that, and I did that, and I did this. But then you say, what can I do about it? In other words, the house. It is dirty. It is crummy. It has always been this way. But hey, you know what? I can change it. That's the hopeful one. That's the positive one. That's the point. What can I do about it? Then we're brave to look. If you know you can make your car beautiful, if you know it can be the best car in the world, you love to find problems, don't you, in the car? Because now you know what to make better. But if you don't think you can make it better, you'd rather not see them. You see my point? It's a very important point. So you've got to have courage to recognize the delusions, your faults, and then want to change them. So right now, guilt exaggerates the faults. You define yourself by the faults. You think the house is ugly and dirty from its own side and you can't even imagine it could change. So of course you get depressed. But it's not accurate. It's just not accurate, that's all. So this step, regret, is a really important thing we need to do. And it's a bit like, I mean, it's the way I say it for myself, you know, it's like you really have to learn to have this good relationship with yourself. We don't have a relationship with ourselves. We don't like ourselves, basically. The usual internal voice is either sort of petulant or hurt or guilty or arrogant or you know, kind of low self-esteem. It's never, we don't spend much time really delighting in our good qualities in a very positive way. We don't spend much time thinking about, daydreaming about benefiting others, daydreaming about offering our dinner to others. You get my point? It's kind of boring. We're completely caught up in delusions. We think all day about the beautiful new thing or the lovely new body we want to have sex with or the gorgeous new piece of food we want to eat or the lovely job or the clothing. We're obsessed with that. Our mind runs like a magnet. We're caught up in attachment all the time, or we're caught up in anger all the time. Or if we do think about ourselves, it's in negative terms. We beat ourselves up, we stress out, we criticize, we're distressed, we're angry, upset, we're hurt, we're critical all the time. It's completely inappropriate. It's awful, unhealthy. So this is why we're always desperate to be with other people. We don't like being with ourselves, frankly. You know, we call that loneliness. We don't know how to be with ourselves in a constructive way. So we need to learn to have a decent relationship with ourselves, not joking. This is really the wisdom wing. Learning to be your own best friend, learning to be your own therapist, learning to really, need to have time on their own. Your retreat mode, with yourself. There's no doubt. So this regret, let's just use an analogy. It's so simple. We understand it well when it comes to daily life. Right now when it comes to being bad, being a bad person, doing bad things, we just have guilt. That's it. We have no other response. We don't know what to do with it. It's so painful. We just have guilt. So, like I said, when you know about cigarettes, when you know that if you smoke cigarettes, maybe, not everybody, but it could cause you cancer, it could cause you suffering, right? Then you know. It's very sensible. You're not going to be upset if someone tells you about it. You'll be glad to recognise this, and you'll make an effort to try and change. If you know, for example, some food that you've eaten, let's say you've eaten the food, and then someone says it's got poison in it, you don't have to be spoken about too much about it. You know perfectly well it means you're going to suffer. So then the response you'll have to that is what's called regret. Regret's a very wholesome, kind of really tasty attitude that recognises that you don't want suffering. This is the obvious first step. You don't want the suffering, because you realise that eating poison food means you will suffer. So because you don't want the suffering, you go, oh my God, what, really? And then you say, what can I do about it? Quick, where's the doctor? Don't you? That's what you do. Because you don't want the suffering. Very simple. In other words, it's all about learning to have compassion for yourself. This reasonable first level is extremely important. To recognise, in other words, that your actions have consequences to yourself. Now, we understand that well. So the same, if you're angry, you've just poisoned yourself. If you kill, if you lie, if you steal. Of course, you harm others, but we're not discussing that yet. We've got to see what it does to ourselves. Sort of like if you have a punch-up in a fight. You're harming yourself, aren't you? You're going to come up with black, bruises and hurt and cut and everything. You're harming others, but you've got to see how it harms you first. So harming others is what harms us, Buddha says. Lying, stealing, killing, bad-mouthing, jealousy, anger, depression, pride, even though those things, the emotions just harm you, but the things we do on the basis of this is what harms others. This first step is we have to get in touch with what harms ourselves. We have to. And that's based on wanting not to suffer. It's very intelligent. Anyway, we don't want to suffer. But Buddha says we're just doing all the things that actually cause our suffering. We're increasing it, not lessening it. So, when it comes to, being negative, harming, lying, stealing, killing, those usual things we're discussing here, the things that harm your mind, as I said, the normal one is we just feel guilty. Or we live in denial, or we blame other people. They're our usual modes now. Now, can you imagine how foolish you'd be when someone told you got poison in your food and you said, I did not eat poison, and you live in denial of it? That'd be really dumb, wouldn't it? Or you just get guilty. Oh my God, I ate poison today. I'm such a bad person, Robina. Every day you're getting sicker and sicker. I ate poison today. I'm such a bad person. I mean, that would be really dumb, right? And the other one is, Robina, go to the doctor, get rid of that poison. Why should I? He put it there. That's how we think. We are so stupid. We blame others, never recognising the harm to ourselves. We live in denial of it, we deny it, or we just feel guilty and hopeless. I mean, they're really stupid responses, but that's what we do. So we have to do this other one, the practical one. And this is why the fundamental teaching here in karma, in this first step of practice, in the wisdom wing, in the junior school, first stage of practice, is this amazing view that whatever you say, do and think has impact upon you. You see, we're so caught up, especially if we're we've got the compassion wing. We do want to help others, and some of us in particular can have the tendency to be good people, to be nice people, to do good things, to be nice people. But then we've got the attachment, and like I said before, our attachment is always in terms of identifying ourselves in that way as a nice person, as a good person. So we think all the time about helping others, but it's so often mixed with attachment. It's really diluted. It's really diluted. It's not helping at all. It's making a big mess. So then for us to think, then we think, we just got to think about others all the time. Thinking about myself, that's so boring. That's not spiritual practice. I want to help others. Well, back off, okay? Back off about others and start looking at yourself. You've got to know yourself well. You've got to know what causes you suffering. You've got to see your revolting attachment and how it harms you so badly. But how you cover it is like a honey-covered razor blade. You don't even know it's suffering, and you think it's even called kindness. You think it's called helping others. It's not. It's making a mess. You've got to come to earth inside yourself. You've got to see yourself. Back off. The wisdom wing is like backing off and minding your own business and leaving people alone. Of course it's good to help people, but if we're all over eagerly helping people because it's mixed with our attachment and we're not helping anyway properly because we haven't got wisdom, and then we're blind to seeing our own delusions and our own attachment and therefore the suffering we're causing ourselves, and not looking at it because we don't even know we've got it, then we're in big trouble. It's like you're eating the wrong food every day and you don't realise it's poisoning you, and meanwhile you're out there trying to help other people eat their food nicely. Excuse me. You've got to put yourself together first. And so often the helping we do now, when it's based on attachment, is like inappropriate, sticking our nose in other people's business. Okay, better than punching them in the nose, I agree. Sometimes with these lamas, you meet these lamas, they're amazing people, and they're great practitioners of this very stuff that we're talking about. You get a sense that sometimes they're kind of indifferent. They seem to back right off, But they don't interfere. We're so caught up in attachment in the way we help each other. We're like this, all stroking each other all the time, like codependent. We're all codependent with each other. Our ordinary daily relationships are all codependent. All full of attachment. We think being friendly and smiling and touching each other and how are you and all this is friendly, is kind. It's not. Sometimes it's just plain old attachment with a smile on it. And because we're so overwhelmed by our own sense of self, we can't even be with each other about going blah, blah, blah and asking questions and how are you and what did you do and what was that, thinking it's being friendly. Sometimes just back off and shut up, That's why even in the evening it's good just to be quiet. Be with other people and don't talk. It's a great practice. Mind your own business. It's a very nice way to say it. Mind your own business. Your mind is your business. Your delusions are your business. And this is the wisdom wing. This is what we have to do. This is what we have to learn deeply about our own mind. And have humility about it. Be happy to see our faults. See the suffering it causes us. Want to go beyond it. Then, and what you're doing there is helping yourself. But guess what? It qualifies you to really help others now. Because you can see clearly. Not through the filter of your own neuroses. Not through the filter of your own attachment. So this first step, very, very important. So how you do it, we'll do it, you know, before we go to bed, we'll do it this evening. Just lead you through it very roughly, very briefly, very easy going. You just contemplate. Okay, today I did this, did that, bad mouth. You check your day, you go back over your day, you know. Especially if you have busy days at work and lots of things and the kids and the hubby. We do lots of interactions and sometimes it's negative. Lots of bad mouthing, criticising, shouting, getting impatient. And you just check it out, you know. You check out what you did, what you said. And you notice, you take responsibility, not all, because we carry the baggage around. The anxiety about it is what kills us, you know, because we don't know how to cope with it. We build up the anxiety, we build up the guilt, the shame, we drag it around from day to day. We've got to handle it every day, get rid of it, you know. Lama Zopa Rinpoche says we're insane not to do this practice every night, this 4 opponent powers, you know. So the first one is you sit down, you take stock. Very brave. You check, okay. Kick the dog at 10 o'clock. Bad mouth my mother at 11 o'clock. Talk behind the back of my friends at work at 1 o'clock. I mean, whatever, you understand. We're not talking Hitler. And if it is Hitler actions, regret them. Sure, whatever it might be. You know, killed the ant. Did this. Got upset with somebody. Little tiny things. You remember them. You look at them. You kind of go back to it. You don't indulge in it. But then you say, I regret this. But that's not enough. Because that just feels like guilt. You've got to say, I regret this because I don't want to leave this seed in my mind, which will ripen as my future suffering. It's like the poison. I don't want this poison to stay inside me. I deeply regret having taken it. What an idiot. How can I get rid of it? So I regret this because I don't want the suffering that will come from this. Now, you know you don't want suffering. You know, if you just shouted at somebody, let's say you were mean to someone, then you know what that suffering feels like. You just have to remember you're being harmed by somebody, and then you know you don't want it. And if you shout at someone, you're going to have the karma of that. So then, of course, you know you don't want it. So then you regret it for that reason. Not out of guilt, because the person now might reject you. And we rush off hungrily, frantically getting the person to be nice to us again so we feel relieved. You look at that. It's such a relief, isn't it, when the person forgives you, when the person comes back to you and talks to you again. It's an immense relief, isn't it, because you've got this great, big, fat, aching guilt in there, and you're terrified you'll get rejected. So when the person likes you again, you feel relieved. That's why we go and manipulate each other to make them like us again, because we're so terrified they mightn't. So all we've got to do is get the nice word back, and then we feel better. And we think that's being good and kind. It's manipulating, you know. It's attachment. Frantic, bottomless pit of hungry attachment. Frantic to get people to say nice things to me, to make me feel like I'm a better person, because I have no way of doing it myself. So this is an internal process that you're doing yourself. You have to make yourself feel better. You're the boss. So you say, I regret this, I regret but you can be particular. Then you can think of general things in this life, especially old stuff, you know. You deeply regret the harm you did, the bad-mouthing, the gossiping, the dumb action, you know, the things that harm others with your body and speech, the killing, whatever. You then, again, you repeat. You know, you can divide it in different ways. The way you harm with your body. You can divide it into the various things you do with your speech. You can divide it into the things you've done today. You can you spend a few minutes. That's all. And then you think whatever. Then you can think, the actions you've done in your past life. That abortion I had. That killing of all those ants. That fishing I did. Whatever it is, you deeply regret because I don't want the future suffering to come from this. I don't want to get killed. I don't want to be harmed. I don't want to get sick. I don't want to be born in the lower realms. You say these words because that's the meaning of regret. You speak it out. And then you think, why not? Anything I've ever done to harm any living being with my body and speech since beginningless time, why not include the lot? I mean, because frankly, what you've done in this life is nothing in comparison with what you did as an animal, Nothing. As animals, we harmed billions. I mean, countless living beings in the most brutal way as animals, It's the worst suffering life from the point of view of how you harm others. So we've got plenty to regret. Nothing to feel guilty about. Be delighted to regret it, because you don't want the future suffering. You don't want to be born that way. You don't want the future suffering. It's a fact. So say it to yourself like that. Get into this habit, you know. So then you think, well, whom can I turn to? Whom can I turn to? Where's the doctor? Just like you will with the poison. And here, this is the best way to describe the relationship you have with the Buddha. He's not your creator. He's your doctor in this context. He's the person you turn to, whose medicine you take that will cure you. So again, the analogy. The second one is called reliance, and the first part is called refuge. So let's again be specific about that. Those of us who are Buddhists, we bandy this term about, you know, I took refuge, yeah, I've taken refuge. We just spout it, but we're not even sure what it even means. But again, like all these things, it's very specific. So let's use the analogy of the poison again. Let's say you haven't taken poison, right? Let's say you're regular, you're healthy, you're normal, and you hear about this amazing doctor in Perth, let's say, or Sydney, or the end of the earth, you know, as far as you can imagine. Let's say, who can cure every poison, who's got every antidote to every poison, which is pretty stunning. Let's say you've heard about him. And you go, oh, really? Perth? Oh, that's interesting. Pass the sugar, please. You're kind of interested, but you're not interested really. Guess why? Because you don't need him. Now check how you feel when you've taken poison. Where was that doctor? Perth? First class? Tomorrow? I'm going. You don't care. And then when you get there, you will hang on every word he says, won't you? You will hang on to every piece of advice, and you will never stop being so grateful, because he can now solve your problem. That's refuge. That's refuge. That feeling of relying, of being so happy to find a doctor who can cure you, because you don't want suffering. So the way they put it in the text is, it sounds very strange to us, this attitude of relying upon the Buddha is based on the fear of future suffering. That's a good way to say it, but don't be sort of highfalutin about it. Oh, fear, that sounds rather silly. You know, you are fearful. You don't want cancer. You don't want to have dreadful suffering. It's true, you don't. Call it fear. It's a healthy fear. What keeps you away from fire is a healthy fear of being burnt. Nothing wrong with that. So it's the fear of future suffering that causes you to turn to a doctor. Well, that's the basis here, the most basic level, the basis for taking refuge in the Buddha. Otherwise, why? You don't want the Buddha. It's like a cute guy who wears a yellow dress, you know. What's the point of that? Oh, he's mindful, you know. It's not enough to rely on the Buddha. You'll get bored after a while. The reason to rely upon the Buddha is because he's this person, you know, who, according to the Buddha's teachings, is a name given to a person who has completely achieved the job of removing all the pollution and developing all the qualities. In other words, he's got all the medicines. Okay, it's up to you. You can use Freud as your doctor. You can use Jesus as your doctor. That's your call. We're talking Buddha here, that's all. So this attitude of relying upon the Buddha, this refuge, that's the meaning. Very specific. It's got to be related to yourself, and you're fed up with suffering. You're exhausted by suffering. You don't want more suffering. So happy to find someone who's got some methods that you can do, because you've got to take the medicine. You've got to do it. That's refuge. So in this practice, you know, we'll do it. You visualize the Buddha, a particular form of the Buddha above your head, you know. And then you'd pray, you'd remember refuge like this, whatever you'd remember. You know, you'd think of the qualities of the Buddha, the Guru, the doctor. You know, you'd think. I mean, anybody who's been very sick and has been cured with certain medicine by certain doctors, you never forget them. You love them forever. You have such respect. It's that kind of feeling one has to kind of cultivate. But the problem with this is that, you see, if we look at the three kinds of suffering in the First Noble Truth, the first kind is the gross kind, which is the one of being sick, of being in a war zone, of really dramatic, gross suffering. And if we don't have that, we don't really think we're suffering. So therefore our refuge is not very strong. But when we understand more deeply the second kind of suffering, which is called simply the suffering of change, but which is referring to the whole suffering of being caught up in attachment, this honey-covered razor blade, then we will have deep refuge. So all these prisoners, we know, they've got incredible refuge because they've got the gross suffering. They've lost their happiness, you know. So we have to think more deeply about the deeper levels of suffering, because that's the basis for having strong refuge, reliance upon the Buddha, and therefore the wish to use his methods, to take his medicine. There's the second part to reliance, and it's curious that it's called reliance, because it's actually where you now develop compassion for others. But it's called reliance. The context here is very clear when you hear it, but we don't normally think of it this way. If the job is, so the compassion wing we're talking now, if the job is to benefit others, then the basis, what gives you the energy to benefit others, is compassion for them, isn't it? Or love for them. If you love your child, you have enormous affection for your child. You also have enormous compassion for your child when they suffer, don't you? And you are compelled to want to benefit them. Nothing will stop you. Nothing will stop you from benefiting them. But it's based upon love and compassion, isn't it? So we've got to develop love and compassion. So what compassion in Buddhist terms is simply defined as, it starts with a thought. The thought, may you not suffer. So it's empathy with someone else's suffering. You see someone else's suffering, your heart reaches out, and you have this thought, this wish, oh my God, that suffering is terrible. Then you have that even develops into what they call great compassion, which is not only may you not suffer, but what can I do to take it away? Now that's the compassion for a mother, isn't it? That's easy. Your kid could be drowning on the beach. Your compassion is huge, but you won't look around thinking, who's going to save my kid? You're in that water whether you can swim or not. That's great compassion. So compassion is this empathy with the suffering of others, and you can say it's the wish that others don't suffer. So clearly that's the basis of your wanting to benefit others, isn't it? Otherwise you're not going to lift a finger to help anybody. You've got to have compassion in your heart. So what do you need in order to have compassion? What causes you to get compassion? Suffering people. So if you don't have any people around you who are suffering, then why would you have compassion? Nothing motivates you. Nothing, it doesn't come, But if you're around suffering, you see suffering, your heart opens. You have compassion. Well, therefore, you need suffering people. Don't you? From that perspective, you've got to get compassion. You better be around suffering people, babe. In other words, if you're a doctor, you need sick people. Otherwise, you can't exercise your skills. You just get bored and give up. So you need, in that sense, you see my point, you rely upon sick people to come to you, to function as a doctor. Well, to develop compassion, you need suffering people. So that's the context, that's the way they use the term. That's why they call this reliance. So we need to be around or to think about or to see or to watch, instead of reading the news and just getting angry with George Bush, you use another point of view. You look at suffering, you see Iraq, you don't just go into the usual political mode and criticise and moan and complain. Look at the suffering. Think about the karma of it. That's how you get compassion. You need to read the papers. You need to watch television. You need to see suffering. You need to hear about it. Because that's what energizes you to get compassion. But what we normally do now is we just use it to be more critical and more negative. Or we go away. We can't look at it, you see. So, as Geshe Sopa said one time, bodhisattvas need their enemies. They're the best one of all, to help you get huge compassion. So this is a very brave attitude, and it's based upon the first one, the wisdom wing, which is what we're talking about in this first practice, the one of regret, That's for your own sake. Then you've got courage to see the suffering of others because you know why they're suffering. In fact, compassion is very clear. It's based upon renunciation. And renunciation is what you get when you finally are in touch with your own suffering and then you know why you're suffering, which is what gives you this sense of regret, which is the understanding of karma. We all know we don't want to suffer, but we blame everybody else for it, so we've got the wrong reasonings. Once we've first know our own suffering and don't want it, but second, know why we suffer, which means your past karma and your own delusions, then you're on track. Then you're on the track. Then you've got the right view. And that's what brings this huge renunciation, which is really like compassion for yourself. You want to go beyond it. And that is the basis for compassion. You can't have compassion until you've got this. Your compassion for others now is unstable. It's based on attachment. It's useless. It's sentimental compassion. It's not compassion at all. The love we have now is based on attachment. It's not real love. So we've got to do the work on our own mind first. We've got to see our own junky delusions. We've got to taste our own delusions like you taste vomit. You've got to know your own suffering. And that doesn't mean you get depressed and all long-faced and go on about it. It means you look into your mind at a deeper level. And not just the gross suffering, that's easy to identify, but the suffering of having these delusions, the suffering of attachment and anger and depression and all the neuroses, to see how they harm you. And that's what brings great self-respect, because you realise this is insane. I have to stop. That's renunciation. And then that's exactly what compassion is. The difference is now, though, it's others instead of yourself. So what compassion is one, you see the suffering of others. But two, and this is the crucial one, you know why they're suffering. And they're not suffering because of George Bush. They're not suffering because of all the mean rich people. They're suffering because of their past karma and their present delusions, just like you. So when you get that down for yourself, then you can easily have compassion for others. And you have it very stably, very clearly, and very powerfully. And it's not neurotic, and it's not scared. You get very brave. Because now you have means to help people. And you know it's their life. The way we have compassion now, we're insulting to other people. We like a mother who tries to, who has compassion mixed with its incredible attachment. We're insulting the child by taking their suffering away, by kind of spoon-feeding them. We don't let them have their own suffering because we can't bear to see it. So we have sentimental compassion. It's really inappropriate. And that's the compassion and kindness we all have for each other. It's just mixed with attachment. I remember my father used to abuse us, right? But he had I really respected another part of him. He really used to say to me all the time, like, my mother, who would then try to compensate for the abuse that our father would give, because the family was all in chaos, she would do my homework for me. Now, I know I didn't do my homework because I was lazy, not because of my father. I know that. But she was sort of feeling bad, so she would do my homework. She would take it away from me, and she would do it. My father would say she has to learn from her own experience. I'd get mad at him. I didn't even know what he meant. But I knew. I knew it was right. He respected me. He let me make my own mistakes. That was kindness. He abused me in other ways, but my mother had this other one, which was the abuse of attachment, which looks like kindness. And it's so wicked, And so, of course, you get furious. When someone takes away your power all the time, under the guise of calling it kindness, then you smash them in the face eventually. That's why we all hate our mums, because she took away our power. She meant well, she did, but her kindness was completely overwhelmed by attachment. So because of this, you interfere in other people's lives. So rude to them. It's actually insulting. Of course, we'll let you do it because it suits us. So we all buy into each other, we collude in each other's garbage, but then we turn against each other. She has to learn from her own experience, he'd say. That's kindness. So he'd let me go to school and get into trouble. Then, of course, I won't do it anymore. I'll grow up, But my mother would constantly not let that happen. And I remember it as a child, So, of course, she meant well. She loved me. My mother loved me. There was no doubt about it. But she had unbelievable attachment, which doesn't have any common sense. Ends up harming people. You end up taking their power away. This is why we have so much resentment in our relationships, So unhealthy. So revolting. So stable compassion we have to try and develop. So this second part of reliance, second step, where you now just think about others. You think about others you've harmed, and you know what their suffering's like, and you have such compassion. Not guilt, but you think, this is unbearable. I know it's suffering, and I must purify myself for their sake. Then you think of those who've harmed you, and you think the same for them. Look at the suffering they're going to experience in the future. How unbearable. So you have compassion for them too. I must purify myself for their sake. Then you do the third step. The remedy. So here it would be a meditation, which we're going to do. I keep promising we're going to do it, but maybe no time left. I'll do it with my glasses. So, okay, What am I saying? We're okay. Do it short. So then you'd imagine now, you just do a certain visualization and the recitation of a certain mantra, and all the lamas would say it's a very potent medicine. But basically, really, in Tibetan Buddhism, you could say you've got a whole medicine cabinet full of medicines, you know. And any action you can do as the antidote, basically, they call it the antidote. It's the remedy, the third R, but it's the antidote to the poison. So the antidote to killing is saving lives, isn't it? Go off and save some lives of animals. Go buy a few fish, a few worms that would otherwise be killed and used for bait. Save a few creatures. Even one creature is just stunning. To save the life of one ant is unbelievable. Go help sick people. Anything you can do to benefit others is a powerful antidote to harming them, isn't there? Do this in your life. It's marvellous. No doubt about that. If you've stolen, you know, the antidote, obviously, is to stop stealing, but to even try and give a little bit. It's obvious, sort of logical. But this particular practice is so powerful, it's said to be, and one has to think about this, of course, that, of course, one does those other things in your life, you must. But this is a super powerful technique that can kind of help purify at a very deep level, you know. So you do the visualization and the recitation, and we'll do that briefly. Then, the fourth step, really the most important in a way, according to Pabonka Rinpoche, one lama from the 1920s. It's a bit like the first one in the sense that you've got to have a good relationship with yourself. This fourth one is crucial. And this one is called resolve, or it's the determination to change. That one that's positive, you know, hopeful. That I'm not defined by my hopelessness, my anger, my this, my jealousy, my attachment. It isn't who I really am, and I can change. And so you don't just sort of fret about it and say, oh, I must not do that again, which is how we do now. We feel so guilty. I mustn't do that again. I'll never do that again. But you're not really being very serious about it. So next day you fall down again, and off you go again. So you've got to really take stock, you know, and give yourself a timeline. You think about it in a very practical way. You've got to really engage in it. So, you know, let's say you've already taken refuge and you're a Buddhist and you've got these, you know, vows to not kill and not lie and so on. You would reiterate that vow. And you would say, I will never kill. Because if you've taken refuge and taken the layperson's vows, let's say, then you've got a vow, a commitment, that you will never kill again. We're going to talk about this tomorrow. And that, of course, means with intention. With intention. Because you're killing all the time. You can't help it. Just walking, breathing. So it's the intention. So in other words, you're vowing that you will never, with intention, kill a sentient being. It's a very marvellous vow. It's a very amazing commitment to make. Incredible commitment. And we'll talk about the power of vows tomorrow. You know, you'd have a vow not to kill, not to lie, not to steal. Well, you'd reiterate those vows. And, you know, we think of these things too as rather self-existent. Oh yeah, I took refuge 20 years ago. I'm a Buddhist. Oh, I took vows 20 years ago. Like as if what? You know, it's like saying, oh, I'm a tennis player. I played tennis 20 years ago. Excuse me, you're only a tennis player if you do it every day. You're only a Buddhist, you know, if you reiterate these things every day and live according to it every day and reinforce it every day. Like doing push-ups every day, you keep getting better at it. So you've got to reiterate your vows every day. Or even if you haven't got vows, you state to yourself, I will not do this. You're the boss. You all know the power of the mind. You can say for years, I must go on a diet. You know, I must go on a diet. You never go on a diet. One day you say, I will go on a diet. And then you lay it all out. And guess what? You will stop eating too much. When your mind finally engages in the decision to do this thing, then you'll do it. So the power of the mind is the point here. And your courage to take responsibility, to know that you're in charge. It's up to you. So you don't lie to yourself, as Lama Zopa Rinpoche says. You don't say, oh, I'll never be angry again, when it's your main habit. I'll never be attached again. You don't say that. That's foolish. It's stupid. But you will say, I won't be angry for 10 minutes. I won't be angry for a month. You give yourself a timeline. Won't be angry for 24 hours. That becomes meaningful. When you have courage, when you succeed, and you build it up slowly, slowly. This is how you change. This is how you change. Again, when it comes to ordinary things, we know it's true. But we can all know we have to have the courage. We all know we're always falling over and always, meaning well but making a mess. So we really have to develop this courage. But by doing this whole practice, it kind of, each piece helps each other. Each piece helps the other, It's very powerful. And as Lama Rinpoche says, you're insane not to do it every day. So just do it quickly. Just be natural. Close your eyes. Just relax. Close your eyes. Be with yourself. And we just do the regret. We think, okay, whatever I've done today, said today, maybe not much, but just check. Check your words. Maybe you badmouth somebody, talk behind someone's back. We do all this stuff all the time. We don't even notice, With your speech, for example, think today. Then just look at your old habits with your speech, Maybe some people have very controlled speech. Maybe people use harsh speech. Maybe you lie. You don't quite say things accurately. Maybe you speak too much. Maybe it's just plain old rubbish gossip, just stuff pouring out your mouth. Maybe it's talking behind, criticising people. And we can do it ever so subtly and don't even notice it, So just regret this. Think, whatever I've done with my speech, today, yesterday, this life, everything I've ever said that has lied or been harsh or harmful, or just plain old nonsense, I regret from the depths of my heart. Because I don't want this suffering. There's no way. I don't want that kind of thing coming to me. I don't want to continue having these habits. Absolutely I regret. Then you think of things you've done with your body. In our lives we've killed creatures, maybe fish, deer, a baby, an abortion. Killed rats, killed cockroaches. All of us do this, I think. So what are the things we can remember? Just think, absolutely, I regret any killing of any sentient being, especially with intention, that I've ever done in this life. That I remember or not, absolutely I regret this. There's no way I want to be killed. There's no way I want to be sick. There's no way I want the suffering of this. There's no way I want to be reborn in suffering realms. I just do not. It's very simple. There's no way I want the result of this. So I regret this. Any harm I've ever done with my body, killing especially, to sentient beings, I deeply regret. And then why not think, whatever I've done since beginningless time, countless lives of animals, if it makes sense to you to think this, just think, whatever I have done since beginningless time, the lying, the bad-mouthing, the harsh speech, talking behind, the killing especially, the harming with the bodies, cruelty, hurting others, and all the sexual misconduct, forgot about that. Sexual misconduct, that's what we do with our body. Because of an unbelievable attachment, we'll cheat on our partners, sleep behind, take someone else's partner. Harm, so much harm comes from this. Sexual misconduct, uncontrolled attachment. It harms others. Absolutely regretting all of this since beginningless time. All the harm I've ever done since beginningless time with my body and speech to sentient beings. No way do I want this suffering. Fed up with suffering. So whom can I turn to? So for now we visualize above our heads the Buddha in a particular form. It's a form from Tantra, actually. You've got the Buddha in the form of the monk, which is from the sutra teachings, from the general teachings. You know, the yellow robe and the golden body and the hair up in a top knot and sitting in meditation. But here we're going to visualize Buddha in the bodhisattva aspect, which is different. We'll talk more about this. And that's the practice we're going to do a little bit with Lama Yeshe, Compassion Buddha. These forms that the Buddhas manifest in, this is very radiant, very like a light body, you know, very radiant and wearing beautiful kind of silken clothes. It's sort of the royal, what do you call the royal aspect of India, you know. This is coming from India. Tibetans didn't change these things much. Jewelry, you know, decorated beautifully, his ears and neck and arms and ankles and wrists. And this 5-pointed crown on his head, the Bodhisattva crown they call it. Very radiant, everything's made of light. And he's sitting above your head on a lotus, a white lotus, facing the same way as you. Very beautiful, radiant energy of the Buddha, completely enlightened, full of wisdom, full of compassion, manifesting in this aspect for your benefit. He's sitting cross-legged on a lotus, his right leg in front of his left, full lotus position, on this white lotus. They say a white lotus is symbolic of your enlightenment because it's born out of mud but untainted by it, like your delusions. It doesn't taint your pure qualities. Then his left hand is holding a bell, which represents wisdom wing, and his right hand is holding what they call a vajra. Yeah, it's hard to describe what it is, unless you see one. Maybe someone can show you one. And this is representing your compassion, and they're crossed at your heart, his heart. And the union of these two, they're crossed like this, is implying full development of the wisdom and compassion wings, full enlightenment. But also he represents emptiness. Vajrasattva is mainly about emptiness, which is the one that really cuts the delusions. The real purification finally is realizing emptiness. That's when you cut all the delusions, finally. So he's very blissful, white light body, radiant, sweet face, young, very beautiful, sweet red mouth. His hair partially held up in a top knot, earrings. Everything's made of light, so beautiful. And the enlightened qualities manifesting. And if you have a spiritual teacher, you think it's your teacher's mind manifesting in this form for your benefit. The Lama's mind, Buddha's mind, same thing. Everything's beautiful, radiant, blissful light. So now you visualize very compassionately. He sends powerful beams of, powerful, like a hose of energy. A bit sort of awkward. You think from his heart, this nectar, very powerful, like a hose of nectar, very focused and strong, kind of arcs around and enters into your crown. And you visualize that this absolutely fills you and instantly purifies all the seeds, all the karmic imprints of all the harm you've ever done since beginningless time with your body, the killing, sexual misconduct, stealing, harming others, anything we've ever done with our body since beginningless time. This nectar is entering into us, forcing out all these karmic imprints which are forced out through the lower parts of our body, which exit the body like filthy liquid. And you imagine that's all those filthy karmic imprints. Just think like that. Visualize this, that's all. And then you imagine this nectar filling you, so powerful, driving out all these imprints of negative karma of body. Strongly imagining this, wanting this, as we recite the mantra just 3 times. If you know the mantra, join in. If not, just listen to it and focus on the visualization. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Teno Patita Dido Mebawa Sutokayo Mebawa Supokayo Mebawa Anurakto Mebawa Sarvasiddhi Memprayatsa Sawakama Sutsame Siddham Shriyam Kuru Hong Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramame Mutsa Vajrabhava Mahasamaya Sattva Ahong Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Teno Patita Dita Mebawa Sutokaya Mebawa Supakaya Mebawa Anurakta Mebawa Sarva Siddhi Memprayatsa Sawakama Sutta Me Siddham Shriyam Kuru Hung Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramami Mutsa Vajrabha Mahasama Sattva Ahung Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Teno Patita Dita Mebawa Sutokaya Mebawa Supakaya Mebawa Anurakta Mebawa Sarva Siddhi Memprayatsa Sawakama Sutta Me Siddham Shriyam Kuru Hung Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramami Mutsa Vajrabha Mahasama Sattva Ahung Pe. So full of this nectar. Imagine all the negative karma of the body completely gone. Not one atom left. Disappeared into space. So relieved. What a delight. And now again, very compassionately, Guru Vajrasattva sends from his heart this powerful kind of hose of nectar that arcs around and enters your crown, and this time rises up to the, fills you and then rises up to the top of the body, bringing with it all the imprints of all the speech, the negative speech since beginningless time that you've ever done to harm sentient beings. Just like as Lama Yeshe says, when you turn on a tap in the sink, all the junk in the glass comes to the surface, doesn't it? Like that. You visualize it, all the imprints of all the negative speech, like this filthy liquid exiting your body through the top part of your body. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Teno Patita Dita Mebawa Sutakayo Mebawa Supakayo Mebawa Anurakta Mebawa Sarva Siddhi Memprayatsa Sawakama Sutta Me Siddham Shriyam Kuru Hung Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramami Mutsa Vajrabhava Mahasama Sattva Ahung Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Teno Patita Dita Mebawa Sutakaya Mebawa Supakaya Mebawa Anurakta Mebawa Sarva Siddhi Memprayatsa Sawakama Sutta Me Siddham Shriyam Kuru Hung Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramami Mutsa Vajrabhava Mahasama Sattva Ahung Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Teno Patita Dita Mebawa Sutakaya Mebawa Supakaya Mebawa Anurakta Mebawa Sarva Siddhi Memprayatsa Sawakama Sutta Me Siddham Shriyam Kuru Hung Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramami Mutsa Vajrabhava Mahasama Sattva Ahung Pe. Completely full of this nectar. All the negativity of speech gone completely. What a relief. And now the third time it's more subtle. Guru Vajrasattva sends light this time, beams of light that arc around and enter your crown and fill you. And instantly, as it hits your heart chakra, you think, just like when you turn on a light in a room, as Lama Yeshe says, instantly the darkness is dispelled, isn't it? There's no argument, you know. The light just takes over. So think like this. This light instantly fills you, instantly removes the delusions from the mind, which are the source of the harm we do to others and the source of our own suffering. The ego grasping, the attachment, the anger, the jealousy, the fears, the pride, the rest. All the rest, the depression, the low self-esteem. All of this. Absolutely annihilated by this radiant light filling us. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Teno Patita Dita Mebawa Sutakaya Mebawa Supakaya Mebawa Anurakta Mebawa Sarva Siddhi Memprayatsa Sawakama Sutta Me Siddham Shriyam Kuru Hung Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramami Mutsa Vajrabhava Mahasama Sattva Ahung Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Teno Patita Dita Mebawa Sutakaya Mebawa Supakaya Mebawa Anurakta Mebawa Sarva Siddhi Memprayatsa Sawakama Sutta Me Siddham Shriyam Kuru Hung Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramami Mutsa Vajrabhava Mahasama Sattva Ahung Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Teno Patita Dita Mebawa Sutakaya Mebawa Supakaya Mebawa Anurakta Mebawa Sarva Siddhi Memprayatsa Sawakama Sutta Me Siddham Shriyam Kuru Hung Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramami Mutsa Vajrabhava Mahasama Sattva Ahung Pe. full of this light. Delusion's gone. So now, the fourth step, most important, resolve to change. So, if you've taken vows to not kill, not lie, not steal, you lay vows and you reiterate those, absolutely. I will never kill again. I will never steal again. I will never lie again, so on. If you've taken bodhisattva vows, tantric vows, you do the same. I will never break these vows. Every day you say this, you keep getting stronger at it. It's not wishful thinking. There's a method for actually helping you keep the vows. I will not make my samaya. I will keep my vows perfectly. Thinking like this, if you've taken vows. Then, if you haven't taken vows, but it makes sense to you, just begin to think, okay, there's some changing here, and some of your old habits, like your depression, your jealousy, your anger, your lying, simple little things, your laziness, your attachment in a certain way, You think even for 5 minutes. You think maybe if you can do it you can say, okay, I won't be angry for 10 hours, and you won't. You'll be asleep most of the night. Wake up next morning, you will have kept your vow. How fantastic. If your problem is with your speech, you're going to be silent for the rest of the night. So you can say, I will not, badmouth. I will not criticise others for 12 hours. And you'll be right. 8:30 in the morning, you start talking. You've got 12 hours to go. You'll keep your vow. And it gives you courage. You start developing this tentative, but courage to start changing your own life. You're the boss, no one else. It's the power of your own mind. So just kind of talk to yourself, Be your friend. Give yourself some timelines. Think it's something you think you can keep with courage. You visualize that the lotus dissolves up into Vajrasattva, and then he dissolves into light, and then very blissfully, this radiant white light, the mind of your Lama, the mind of the Buddha, dissolve into your crown chakra, which is towards the back of your head. If the spine were to go all the way to the top, the crown chakra is just in front of there. So you visualize this light, the energy of the Guru, the Buddha, enters into you, comes down to your heart chakra at the center of your chest. And you imagine this merges with your mind. And you think, my mind, Lama's mind, Buddha's mind, same thing. And then we dedicate this session, the day, just the thinking we've done, the thinking, the talking, the aspiring, the analysing. All this is just good hard work. How fantastic. Be delighted. Delight in yourself. One of the most important practices we have to do is be, in a very clean, excellent way, delight in our efforts, delight in our good qualities. You know, you could be making a mess of your life right now. The house could still be a big mess, but you're delighting in your efforts. You really have to do this. It's a powerful way to help yourself change. Just constantly criticizing yourself is actually negative. It's not even positive. It's not even good. It's really not good at all. It's just ego. So you've got to see your effort, delight in your effort, delight in your good qualities, delight that how hard you must have worked in past life to even be who you are, delight that you even want to practice a spiritual path, delight in all these things. Just be happy. Say plainly, I'm happy with this. I'm doing a good job. This is great. It gives you courage. If you keep criticizing that little kid, they'll never do anything. They'll be hopeless. You'll just beat them down. We just beat ourselves down. Stop doing it. Then you have more courage to find the faults accurately. You know, not the guilt, but you'll have the courage to confront yourself and see yourself for what's going on, and then have the courage to change. It's so important. So all these seeds we've planted all day, how marvellous. May they ripen in our own marvellous potential for the sake of others. And may compassion grow and grow in the hearts of all. And so now, you know, if it suits you, please go to the retreat mode. You're here on your own. And if other people talk, then let them, you just mind your own business, you know, it doesn't matter. You just switch off, you're here on your own. You do your own thing. You sit, you lie, you look, you know, you read something, you write notes. Just be here on your own. Go into the retreat mode. Process today, whatever you think, you know. Make some resolutions, it's up to you. And then you watch before you go to sleep, you make the conscious effort to see your dreams as dreams. And then when you wake up, how marvellous that I'm still alive, this is incredible. Must not waste this day. Listen to Buddha's teachings. Think about things. So I can develop my qualities and benefit others. One more day. Okay. Thanks everyone.